incredible act of courage. Black Maid shields Billionaire's frail father, the life-changing truth. Thunder roared overhead, shaking the walls of the Hawthorne mansion just as rain pounded against the windows. Sarah, a 35-year-old African-American maid, hurried to finish her chores while her heart raced. She thought of her 2 children at home, wondering if they were safe from the storm. Amid the chaos, she found herself alone in the cold, expansive halls of the wealthy billionaire Thomas Hawthorne, who sat watching her from his wheelchair with a mixture of appreciation and pity. As shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, Sarah's thoughts shifted. She had spent years dedicated to this job, pushing herself through the long hours that barely paid the bills. Struggling under the weight of economic inequality and the illusion of the American dream, she was constantly pulled in 2 directions, wanting the best for her kids while questioning if it was even possible. She glanced at Thomas, a man who had everything yet was trapped within the confines of his own body. That thought stung. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the mansion was plunged into darkness. Panic surged as a frantic wind howled outside. Rain pelted the roof like a million frantic hands, and for a moment, silence hung heavily. Then, all at once, something crackled. Smoke began to fill the living room, rising in dark clouds that clung to the air. Trembling, Sarah's instincts kicked in. She needed to act.in that stormy chaos. The flames ignited a roaring beast consuming everything in its path, threatening Thomas's fragile existence. Without hesitating, Sarah dashed towards him, heart hammering against her chest. The heat kissed her skin as she reached him, lifting Thomas from the chair that had imprisoned him for years. His startled eyes met hers, and in that moment, she felt a visceral connection. This was more than duty. It was life or death. With her arms around him, she pushed through the suffocating smoke, desperate to escape the inferno that sought to destroy them both. Sirens wailed in the distance, inching closer as the neighbors began to take notice. In that swirling blur of flames and chaos, an unlikely bond was formed, a bond born from courage and sacrifice, ripping away the layers of prejudice that had existed between them. People gathered outside as they emerged from the mansion, gasping at the sight of Sarah cradling Thomas like a fragile lifeline. Whispers of reverence floated among the crowd. Sarah was no longer just the maid. She was a savior. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as the adrenaline faded, so did the euphoria. A shadow of guilt crossed Alex, Thomas' estranged son, as he arrived in his polished sports car. Sinister echoes of disappointment etched on his features. This crisis forced him to confront the chasm he had created with his father, and the fragments of resentment began bubbling to the surface. Days passed, and the fissures within the Hawthorne family deepened. Frustrations turned into fierce discussions as they spoke of blame and forgiveness. While society praised Sarah, she wrestled with her newfound place among them, a maid transformed into a hero. Would she ever truly be seen? Could she claim the dignity she fought for in a world still stingy with recognition? In the heart of this turmoil remained one burning question. Could Sarah, with everything she had sacrificed, seize her rightful place amid the ruins of the Hawthorne legacy? And in the unfolding drama of their intertwined lives, would her courage be enough to challenge the societal barriers that held her back? The aftermath of the fire felt surreal. Sarah found herself standing on the manicured lawn, surrounded by onlookers who regarded her with awe and nervous admiration. She watched the smoke twist and curl into the sky, almost as if the mansion had exhaled its last breath. Thomas, wrapped in a blanket, and now resting on the back of an ambulance, stared at her with eyes full of gratitude. Yet, there was a question lingering unvoiced between them. The crowd that had once whispered her name now erupted into conversation, discussing the so-called heroism of a maid. The weight of their gaze pressed down hard on her shoulders. "Are you all right?" she asked Thomas, her voice barely a whisper over the murmurs of the crowd. He nodded slowly, but the grave expression on his face told another story. "You saved my life, Sarah." The sincerity in his voice hung in the air, and she felt her heart swell, yet still beat heavy with uncertainty. Amid their shared moment, Alex stepped forward. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, his jaw clenched. "You put yourself in danger for him," he stated, but the words were laced with a complex mix of resentment and admiration. "Why?" Sarah inhaled sharply, the bitter taste of fear flooding her senses. "Because he is your father," she replied, needing him to understand the depths of the bond that had formed under duress. "And humanity is more than power or money. It's about protecting each other." Alex's eyes searched hers, looking for something he could latch onto. The conflict between them was palpable, a battle raging within him. "You shouldn't have had to," he murmured, looking away. "Neither should you," she shot back, heat rising in her cheeks. They both stood in the shadows of expectations that loomed over them, two different worlds colliding. Inside the hospital, moments turned into hours. Thomas underwent tests and evaluations. Sarah waited, anxiety gnawing at her insides, questioning what this would mean for her and her children. Would the fire change everything? Would she remain just a maid and never be seen for all she was worth? Eventually, a doctor emerged, and Sarah held her breath as he spoke. "He'll need time to recover, but he is going to be okay." Relief washed over her like a cool breeze on a hot summer day. Thomas would live. The doctor turned to Alex. "Take care of him. He needs support. Family at his side." Just then a sob broke the silence. It came from Sarah's direction. A young woman pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad!" she cried, running towards Thomas. Alex spun around on his heels, shock washing over his face as the stranger collapsed against his father's hospital bed. Sarah stepped back, feeling like a hidden silhouette in this startling family reunion. Her heart twisted with the painful reminder that no matter her bravery, she was still an outsider. The air thickened as Alex and his sister embraced Thomas, the love coursing between them sparking an ache deep inside Sarah. Feeling like an intruder, she took a step back, blending into the stark white walls. But Thomas's voice broke through. "Sarah, please come here." His invitation warmed her heart, unraveling the embarrassment of her own fears. She hesitated only a moment before crossing the room, sensing the eyes of the new family member on her. "What you did," Thomas began, his voice weak but firm. "It deserves acknowledgement. We need to have a conversation about how we move forward from here." Her breath caught in her throat. The question still hung heavy in the air. What did that mean for her? As she stood between the love that encased Thomas and the uncertainty of her own future, two worlds collided once more. Before she could dwell on it, Alex spoke up, frustration spilling from him. "How do we even start? What do we say to someone who saved our father?" And there it was. The tension twisted tight. The rebirth of everything they thought they knew was dawning. But how would they forge this new path together? Sarah felt her heart race, ready to embrace what was possible, yet terrified of the unknown it would take. More than bravery to navigate the tangled emotions ahead. What would it take to heal? For Sarah to not just be a maid but a part of this family. What transformations lay just beyond her grasp? The room was heavy with silence after Alex's question hung in the air like smoke. Every second felt charged, pregnant with possibilities and raw emotions. Sarah shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing at Thomas, and then at the young woman, his daughter, who now held his hand tightly, her fingers trembling. "Can we just take a moment?" Thomas said, his voice struggling to maintain the steadiness it was known for. He looked between his children, trying to bond their shared history to this new reality incomplete without acknowledging Sarah's role. "What Sarah did, it changes everything. Doesn't it?" His daughter, still sniffling, nodded, her brow knitted with confusion. "But how do we even begin to thank her? She's just a maid." The word hung between them like a cold draught. Just a maid. Those words pierced Sarah. In that moment, she felt the old familiar sting of being invisible. Yet it was not just about the job. She had risked everything, even her life, and for that, she deserved recognition. "I'm not just a maid," Sarah interjected, her voice strong and clear despite her heartbeat pounding in her ears. "I'm a mother. I'm a person." Alex's eyes flared wide at her response. For a brief flicker, she saw respect dance in those depths, but it faded quickly, complicated by uncertainty. "But how do we move forward?" he pressed, looking desperate for guidance, as if Sarah held the keys to rebuild their fractured perceptions. "We start by recognizing what has been done." Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself in that moment. "You can see me and others like me not just for the title society gives us, but for the worth we carry. I did this because I believe we all deserve to be seen, to be valued." Thomas smiled weakly, pride flickering across his face despite the pain etched into it. "I see you," he said softly, and as he said it, something shifted in his children's eyes. "Maybe we can think about what family means," Thomas continued, voice steadier now. "Together, we can find a way to blend our lives, make sense of this new reality." Sarah felt hope bloom in her chest. What if they could become a real family? A family that didn't just share blood but also experiences and growth? But that hope was tempered by the weight of the unclarity that lingered. "I want to help, I do," Alex said, his brow creased in thought. "But is it possible to change how we viewed each other?" The question echoed, sweeping through the room. His sister broke the momentary silence, her eyes shining with a new understanding. "Dad, could we invite her to our family gatherings? To be part of our lives?" The idea hung there like a fragile thread. It was a start, yet Sarah felt the heaviness of what that involvement might entail. Could her life truly intertwine with theirs? Could she go beyond the role she played and intersect as a family member, rather than just an outsider? "I need to think about it," Sarah said cautiously, more aware than ever of the fear of what acceptance would mean for her heart and her children. As the gravity of their choices settled over them, Thomas's eyes glistened with emotion. "Let us not rush it," he suggested gently. "Let us take this one step at a time." Somewhere inside, Sarah churned with the realization that navigating this new path would require more than just consideration. It would require courage, honesty, and a commitment to shift the way they define family. Would she be brave enough to take the plunge? Would this spark of hope turn into a fire of transformation? As she contemplated the path ahead, Alex leaned closer, his presence demanding her attention. "Sarah, I know we've had our differences, but can we work on that? Can we find a way to make this family something better?" The question hung in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled, and Sarah felt a spark of determination ignite within her. But what if the deeper bonds forged from this fire threatened to burn everything familiar to the ground? The moment lingered, the weight of unspoken words pressing on everyone's shoulders. Sarah could feel her heart hammering. This wasn't just a conversation, this was her future. Perhaps their future too. Can we really make this work? Thomas's voice cracked slightly, revealing the uncertainty tucked away behind his practiced calm. His daughter, still clutching his hand, looked on with wide eyes, emotion swirling as she tried to understand what was being asked. "Why not?" Sarah found herself saying, her voice stronger than she felt. "Everything starts with one step. But how do we break down these walls?" Alex asked, leaning in, almost pleading. I mean, we've seen you in the background. He swallowed hard, perhaps thinking of all the times he might have taken for granted the person who stood quietly in their lives. It's going to take time to unlearn everything we thought we knew. Tension hung in the air, raw and electric. Sarah could see the understanding beginning to form among them, tiny sparks igniting the way to something uncharted. I guess we just start, she replied softly, her resolve hardening like steel. For so long, she had lived with the echoes of others' assumptions about her life and worth. But maybe, just maybe, there was a flicker of hope here. We discover each other, moment by moment. Alex nodded slowly, his gaze intense and searching. It won't be easy, he warned, a seriousness creeping into his features. Fractured family dynamics can crumble under pressure. We'll face challenges that feel insurmountable. Softly, Sarah responded. No one said it would be easy, her smile gentle. But nothing worth having ever is. The palpable tension shifted as Thomas leaned toward Sarah. We need to learn to listen, he said. And not just periodically. We need to consistently choose to listen to each other. His daughter chimed in, her voice surprisingly steady. Can we promise to share our stories? I want to know you better, Sarah. Not the title or the job, but you. Sarah's heart soared a little at this unexpected kindness. That essay start, she whispered back, feeling the warmth of acceptance wrap around her, but then uncertainty crept in again like an unwelcome guest. And what if, after sharing, we don't like what we see? Sarah's voice trembled. It was a fear that made her stomach clench. Then we work through that too, Alex said firmly, his blue eyes earnest. Face it head on and figure out what to do next. The family stood at the precipice of change, each one holding their breath as if about to leap into a vast unknown. Would their newfound understanding hold firm against the very real pressures waiting on the outside? Just then, Sarah's youngest child, Sophie, whose big brown eyes had been watching, tugged at her sleeve. Mom, can I be part of this too? She asked, so innocently. I want to know these new people. I think it's nice. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, her brave little girl asking for connection without hesitation, without fear. Suddenly, the idea of turning back seemed foolish. Of course, sweetheart, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Family is meant to be embraced, not feared. There was a flicker of laughter as the tension broke, followed by another shared glance among the adults. They still had a long way to go. This was just the beginning. As the conversation flowed, they exchanged stories, laughter bubbling to the surface. With every shared experience, Sarah felt her walls tremble. Were they beginning to really see each other? But lurking just beneath this newfound hope was an unease. Not all ghosts are easily laid to rest. As she shared, she felt the shadow of past prejudices looming. What if the comfort they felt today vanished tomorrow? That thought niggled at Sarah, making her heart race again. She forced a smile, but the weight of that question lingered in the quiet corners of her mind. Could their fragile connection withstand the trials that lay ahead? As the evening faded and laughter turned to murmurs of uncertainty, Sarah knew they were on the cusp of something monumental, but with monumental change came monumental stakes. And as the night drew to a close, she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was still brewing on the horizon. How would they face it together? The next morning, a soft light filtered through the curtains, filling the room with a warm glow. Sarah awoke, the events of the previous night replaying in her mind like a movie reel. She had shared pieces of herself, revealing soft underbellies that had been buried too long beneath layers of doubt and fear. She was overwhelmed and terrified, but there was a persistent glimmer of hope. Mom! Sophie's voice called out, pulling her from her swirling thoughts. Breakfast is ready. As she made her way to the kitchen, the delicious aroma of pancakes wafted through the air, bringing a smile to her face. It was a Saturday ritual, the one constant thing in her life that filled her with joy. When she entered the kitchen, her heart swelled at the sight of her daughter standing on a chair, pouring syrup over a tower of fluffy pancakes. "Looks amazing, sweetheart." Sarah beamed, ruffling Sophia's hair affectionately. For a moment, all uncertainty melted away, but the moment was fleeting. She remembered the promise, the pact to share stories with Thomas and Alex's family, and her stomach did a little flip. Would they really accept her? Was she brave enough to delve into the truths that her heart wanted to share? The front door creaked as it swung open, and Sarah turned to see Thomas entering. He looked a little disheveled, but there was a determined glint in his eyes. "Morning," he greeted, his voice warm despite the early hour. "I came to help. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all," Sarah replied, her nerves suspiciously calm. "Sophia's cooking, how could I refuse?" Thomas chuckled, his gaze dancing between both of them, and Sarah felt something shift. For the first time, she sensed a blossoming understanding. Perhaps he wanted this as much as she did. As they navigated the morning, the atmosphere in the kitchen grew lighter, laughter easterly breaking the remnants of tension. But beneath that laughter lay an undercurrent of anticipation. Every shared glance held the possibility of something deeper, something raw. After breakfast, Thomas caught her eye. "Are you ready for today?" he asked, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. "Ready or not, I think we need to face it," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "I just hope we can all be honest." He nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between them. This was bigger than simply involving their families. This was about reckoning with their histories and embracing painful truths. They agreed to meet later that evening at a local park, a neutral ground where they could converse freely. As the afternoon stretched out before them, Sarah busied herself, trying to shake off the anxiety creeping back. But as evening approached, a storm rolled in. Dark clouds gathered, ominous yet beautiful against the fading light. Sophie peered out the window. "Mom, it looks scary out there," she said, her eyes wide. "It's just a little rain, sweetheart," Sarah reassured her, but her own heart trembled at the thought. It felt somehow symbolic, as if the universe were preparing them for the storms within their hearts. When the time arrived, Sarah found herself standing beneath the shelter of a tree at the park, feeling the first drops of rain begin to fall. She glanced around, waiting for Thomas and Alex. Would they arrive? Would they feel the weight of the second chance they were attempting? As the downpour intensified, so too did her heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the falling rain. Thunder rumbled overhead, echoing the tension she felt building inside her. Then they appeared, drenched but laughing, their faces lit with a mix of joy and trepidation. "Guess we're in for a little weather," Alex said with a wide grin, trying to lighten the mood. And as they stood there, committed to sharing their stories, the rain poured down like a cleansing ritual, washing away doubts and fears. But before they could begin, Sarah felt a sudden chill run down her spine, as if the storm had shifted inside her. She realized deep down, this was about more than just their stories. It was about revealing the truth that lay beneath the surface, a truth that could change everything. "Let us go," she urged, as lightning cracked the sky above them, illuminating their faces. As they moved toward a picnic table, their hearts synchronized with the rhythm of the rain. Would the storm serve as a backdrop for their brave sharing, or would it unearth deeper fears? As they took their seats, Sarah felt that familiar weight of the unknown pressing down. Who would emerge from this conversation? Would they still be whole by the end? The storm had barely begun to sound, echoing her own transitioning heart. She took a deep breath, ready for the storm they were about to face together, hoping against hope that it would bind them closer instead of tearing them apart. What truth was hiding in the shadows, just waiting to be revealed? The rain pounded harder, each drop hitting the ground like an anxious heartbeat. Sarah gathered her thoughts, glancing at Thomas and Alex. They were only a few feet apart, yet their unspoken worlds felt vast. There was no turning back now. "So," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly, "we're here because we've all been through tough things that shaped us. I think it's about time we shared." The weight of her words lingered in the air, merging with the sound of raindrops. "I can start," Thomas said, hesitating as he searched for the right words. The soft gleam of streetlights illuminated his face, adding a heaviness to the moment. "Growing up, I always felt invisible, like I had to sneak through life as if no one noticed me. My dad was, well, he still is, a forceful presence. Nothing was ever enough. I struggled to find my voice." Sarah admired his courage. It was a necessary first step. She felt a surge of gratitude for him, for his willingness to bare his soul. Perhaps this sharing could bridge the gaps between them. Alex looked between them, his brow furrowed. "It hasn't been easy for me either," he admitted. "After my mom passed, things spiraled. I got lost in grief, pushed everyone away. It felt safer not to let anyone get too close." He swallowed hard, eyes shimmering with unshed emotion. "I wish I had reached out. I wish I had let people love me." For a moment, there was silence, the kind that felt rich with possibility. Sarah could sense their walls cracking. She realized then that this wasn't just about her. They were all part of something greater, something healing. To break the ensuing stillness, she confessed, "I've always felt unworthy. Raising Sophie alone, I battled with feelings of shame. I didn't want to be the person my parents thought I would be, someone who couldn't stand on her own. It's a battle every day to remind myself that I can be enough." As the rain poured down, the storm outside only matched the tempest brewing within each of them. Alex looked at Sarah, his expression earnest. "You are enough, Sarah. We all have our struggles, but we can't let our past define us." "But what if letting go means losing our protection?" she countered, the doubt creeping back in. "What if the truth we share makes it all worse?" "Sometimes the truth isn't just scary," Thomas chimed in gently. "It can be liberating." He took a deep breath, glancing at his feet. "But it requires trust. Whatever we share now can either pull us together or drive us apart. And I want to believe that we can overcome this together." As the rain hammered harder, Sarah felt a flicker of hope in the trepidation that filled her heart. Could this be the beginning of a bond forged in honesty? She looked at both men, seeking strength in their camaraderie. The rain was relentless, but within that storm, Sarah felt something shift. Their stories could be the bridge to overcome the fears that had once clouded her heart. Summoning every ounce of courage, she asked, "What if we took the plunge? What if we dig a little deeper into our truths?" As the shadows danced around them, thunder rumbled ominously, as if echoing her challenge. Alex and Thomas exchanged glances, curiosity sparking in their eyes, igniting a sense of determination. "What do you mean?" Thomas prompted, leaning forward. Sarah took a breath, ready to scale the wall she'd built too long. "What if we reveal not just our fears, but our biggest regrets? The truths that haunt us? Maybe in revealing our past, we can redefine our futures." Before anyone could respond, an unexpected flash of lightning illuminated the park, and for an instant, the world around them felt surreal. This was their moment. A crossroads. Would they commit to uncovering those hidden truths? Just as they were about to speak, a sudden gust of wind blew through the trees, and they all froze, anticipating the storm ahead. Sarah's heart raced as she realized that revealing their deepest fears could change everything. What revelations would come to light, and would the storm sweeping through their lives bind them together, or tear them apart? Sarah felt the weight of the moment hanging like a storm cloud above them. The faces of Thomas and Alex glimmered with apprehension, their eyes wide and searching. She wondered if they realized what lay ahead. As she opened her mouth to speak, every heartbeat pulsed in her ears. "I guess I can go first," Alex said, breaking the silence, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The rain continued to drum a steady rhythm, each drop making the air heavier with anticipation. My biggest regret? It was a day I let my anger control me. I pushed away my little sister the night my mom died. I was so consumed by grief I couldn't see what I was doing. I was supposed to protect her, but instead, I isolated us both. His honesty was raw, and Sarah felt a pang in her heart. She had never realized how deeply Alex had suffered in silence, the weight of lost moments pressing down on him. She saw something shimmer beneath the surface, a hope that perhaps sharing pain could bring about understanding. After she moved in with our aunt, I wanted to reach out. I did, but it was too late. She needed me, and I wasn't there. I wish I could change that. I wish I could tell her how sorry I am. He looked down, shame darkening his features. Thomas leaned in, his face softening. "You're not the only one carrying that burden, Alex. We all have choices we regret. It's part of what makes us human." He paused, swallowing hard. I avoided confronting my own demons for so long. My dad? I wanted to make him proud, but I realized that his dreams for me weren't my dreams. I wish I had been brave enough to stand up to him. Instead, I just drifted along, lost in a fog of expectations. As Thomas spoke, Sarah found herself holding her breath, the weight of his words settling over them like the rain. There was something powerful in their confessions, something that transformed the air around them. The shadows of the park felt alive, closing in with empathy. Sarah decided it was her turn, her heart pounding fiercely. I left home with the belief that I could do it. I convinced myself I was enough. But the reality hit me when Sophie was born. I was terrified I wouldn't be able to give her what she needed. I let fear guide my decisions. I'm still learning what it means to be a good mother and a strong person. She took a breath, feeling the shared vulnerability wrap around them. The storm raged on, but in this moment, the tempest felt more like a release. "I have so many moments I wish I could change," she continued, eyes glistening with tears. "Moments I let doubt dictate my actions, or moments that pushed me to the edge. It's like I keep replaying them in my mind, haunted by the what-ifs. Like when I had to let my best friend go, the one who kept me grounded." Thomas and Alex exchanged glances, and a quiet solidarity seemed to form amongst them. The echoes of their regrets, while painful, were lighting a fire of resilience. "What if we take those regrets and transform them?" Thomas said suddenly, a flicker of determination in his eyes. "They don't have to define us. What if we choose to learn from them instead?" Sarah felt a rush of hope, something fresh and bright amidst the embracing darkness. "Yes, let us do that. Let us turn this storm into something that fuels us." As they sat in the pouring rain, emotions laid bare and hearts intertwined. A sense of unity swelled around them. They could embrace the challenges ahead, knowing they weren't alone. And with that thought, a sudden chill swept through the air, colder than the rain, reminding them that the storm outside matched their journey within. How deep would their revelations go? What else would they uncover lying buried beneath their regrets? As the lightning flashed again, illuminating the night, Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration. Each truth shared was like stepping into uncharted territory. Where would it lead? What would they discover about themselves and each other? The silence stretched out, charged with anticipation, as the rain poured around them. The storm seemed to synchronize with their heartbeats, a chaotic symphony that underscored their shared moment of vulnerability. Sarah glanced at Thomas and Alex. She could see their determination rising like steam from the pavement beneath their feet. "Okay," Alex said, breaking the momentary stillness. "We've shared our wounds. What about the dreams we've lost sight of?" His question hung in the air. Sarah felt her heart race again. Dreams. It was a loaded word, one that could bring both joy and sorrow. She thought of the aspirations she had set aside in the name of survival. "I had this dream of traveling the world," she admitted, her voice shaky but clear. "I wanted to be an artist, to paint my experiences and show others what I felt inside. But life happened. I got scared. I let fear settle like dust on my dreams." She exhaled deeply, a mixture of regret and relief flooding through her. "I don't even know when I stopped believing I could do it. Sometimes I look at my old canvases and I feel this ache inside, like I've locked up a part of myself." A droplet cascaded down her cheek, indistinguishable from the rain. Thomas's eyes softened as he leaned in closer. "You're not alone in that. I buried my passion for writing. I thought it wasn't practical, but every time I see a blank page it stings." Sarah noticed the way Alex shifted his weight, the way he seemed to contemplate something heavy before speaking. "I thought I was destined to be an engineer because that's what everyone expected from me, but inside, I always wanted to create music. I've been stuffing my heart into a box for so long. I miss it. I miss that kind of freedom and joy." The clouds above them rumbled, and then, like a sigh of relief, a gentle rain began to patter down, washing away some of the intensity around them. "This storm," Sarah said, gesturing toward the downpour, "it reminds me that sometimes you need chaos to create. After the storm, the world feels fresh, clean. Maybe that's how we can approach our dreams too." Alex nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "What if we create space for those dreams again? What if we let ourselves be wild for once?" Thomas grinned, his breath catching in his throat. "Yes. Let us find ways to reconnect with those parts of ourselves. We could challenge each other, maybe dedicate a day each week to pursuing what we once loved. No fear, just passion." "But how?" Sarah's heart raced at the thought. The idea felt exhilarating and terrifying at once. What if life gets in the way? "Life is always going to get in the way," Alex said, standing a little taller now. "But maybe that's part of the beauty. We can carve out little pockets of time, moments that are just for us." As they shared glances, each heart seemed to thrum with the promise of a new beginning. The darkness no longer felt oppressive, but instead was filled with uncharted potential. "Every storm runs out of rain, right?" Sarah murmured, a smile breaking through her uncertainty. "Exactly," Thomas exclaimed, his eyes shining. "Let us embrace the wildness of these dreams. We can turn those hidden passions into something powerful." But just when they felt that spark, another flash of lightning illuminated the park, startling them. Shadows danced around them, echoes of fears and doubts. "What if we reach for these dreams and fail?" Sarah's voice trembled, the busyness of her mind whispering words of doubt. "What if we don't?" Alex responded quickly, his tone resolute. The answer hung between them, heavy with possibility. As the rain soaked through their clothes and hearts, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling an unfamiliar courage stir within her. She was ready, and she felt the others rising, the weight of their shared regrets transforming into hope. But what if embracing their wild dreams came with its own risks? The storm rumbled on, and with it, they stood stronger together, ready to venture into uncharted waters. Would they dare to let their dreams take flight? Or would the fear of failure keep them grounded? The storm's roars began to fade, replaced by a softer cadence of rain, each droplet a reminder of the promise they had just made. Sarah breathed in the fresh, earthy scent of the dampened ground, closing her eyes for a moment. Each inhale felt like a renewal. She could almost see her old paintbrushes waiting for her to return to them. "How do we start?" Thomas asked, pulling her from her thoughts. His eyes were bright, filled with a mix of eagerness and apprehension. Alex chuckled nervously. "Well, we could each try something small. Just a taste of our passions, you know? Like Sarah, how about you start by painting a little every day, even if it's just a simple sketch?" "That sounds good," Sarah replied, excitement bubbling up inside her. And you too? I think I'll try writing, even if it's just for 5 minutes every morning, Thomas said with a nod. No expectations, just words flowing onto the page. Alex scratched the back of his head. And I'll pull out my guitar just to see what happens. Even if it's just me strumming away, I'd love to feel that again. The three exchanged determined glances, their collective energy kicking back into gear. But then, like an ominous cloud drifting in on their joy, doubt slipped back in. What if we start strong and then fall back into our routines? Sarah asked, her brow furrowing. What if we can't keep this up? Then we keep each other accountable, Alex shot back, his voice steady. We can't let fear dictate our actions anymore. We push through together. Something about his confidence lifted Sarah's spirits. Okay, a pact. For the next month, we check in on each other once a week. Share progress, setbacks, all of it. Deal, Thomas said, pumping his fist into the air. We can remind each other about why we're doing this. As a wave of exhilaration washed over them, Sarah felt an unprecedented spark ignite deep within. Maybe this was the chaos they needed to make something beautiful. She wasn't alone anymore. They were in this together. Though the rain continued to fall, a rainbow peeked through the clouds, painting the sky in hues of hope. Sarah grinned, her heart swelling with the realization that dreams were not meant to be buried but nurtured into bloom. Hours later, as the evening set in, they sat on the grass, soaked but unbothered. Laughter mingled with raindrops, as they made jokes about the absurdity of their situation, each shared moment tightening their bond further. But as they smiled and teased, Sarah felt a tiny twinge of unease. What if the vulnerability they were inviting back into their lives didn't just lead to dreams rekindled, but also to more heartbreak? The fears they had shared earlier began creeping back. The thought was a heavy weight on her chest, but she pushed it aside. She had to focus on this newfound commitment, on the possibilities unfurling like petals after a storm. Suddenly, an intense flash of lightning illuminated the darkening sky, accompanied by a crack of thunder that reverberated through the park, shaking Sarah from her thoughts. "Whoa!" Thomas exclaimed, eyes wide. That was close. As adrenaline coursed through her, Sarah bit her lip, feeling a surge of determination rise again. "Let us take risks. Let us be wild," she shouted, her voice carrying over the thrumming rain. "We owe it to ourselves." "Wildness is in our dreams," Alex shouted back, his enthusiasm infectious. But deep down, Sarah couldn't shake the worry. How much risk was too much? As they laughed and made plans for their weekly check-ins, another bolt of lightning cracked in the distance, and Sarah made a silent vow. She would confront whatever came with courage. But she couldn't ignore the whisper that followed her in the shadows. What if embracing their dreams led them to face what they feared the most? Would they have the strength to weather another storm together? The storm slowly faded, the last raindrops falling softly like whispers as the sun emerged, casting a golden light over the park. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart still racing from their vows, and the mix of vulnerability and exhilaration that had enveloped them. The promise of new beginnings felt palpable in the crisp air. Moments later, Thomas raised his voice above the now gentle breeze. "So what does our first check-in look like? When do we actually do this?" Alex glanced up at the sky, squinting against the brightening sun. "How about next Saturday? We can meet here again. Each of us can share our struggles and progress since we last met." "Sounds great," Sarah chimed in, her excitement bubbling like a pot on the boil. "It'll keep us accountable and remind us why we started this journey." With a sense of unity, they all agreed, marking the date in their minds. As they stood up to leave, the weight of their shared secrets felt lighter, their bond strengthened. They had taken a leap of faith together, untangling their fears, revealing regrets, and now the path ahead was clearer. As they walked toward the parking lot, Sophie ran up to them, her wide brown eyes shining. "Mom, can I come to your meetings?" Sarah knelt beside her daughter, smirking. "I think they might be a bit boring, sweetheart. It's adult stuff." "I don't care. I want to know how dreams can come true." Sophie beamed, and in that moment, Sarah felt her heart swell with pride. "Okay, you can join us." She laughed, and the enthusiasm in Sophie's eyes melted away her lingering worries. If Sophie could dream big and with abandon, so could Sarah. The next week rolled in, and Saturday arrived faster than they could be anticipated. Sarah spent the night before excitedly preparing her small canvas and brushes, the first step in regaining her passion. The following morning, she quietly reminded herself of the commitment she made. Arriving at the park, the air was filled with laughter and warmth. Alex had already strummed a few chords on his guitar, sending vibrant notes floating through the air, while Thomas sat at a picnic table, scribbling away in a notebook. "Hey, everyone!" Sarah called, her nerves bubbling beneath the surface but buoyed by the sense of camaraderie. "I'm ready to start painting again." Thomas looked up, his face lighting up. "Can't wait to see what you create, Sarah." Feeling slightly less anxious, she pulled out her canvas from under her arm, joining them at the table. "I've been thinking about focusing on hope. You know, finding ways to infuse it into what I paint." "I love that," Alex said, his fingers still lingering over his guitar. "For me, it's about letting go of past regrets and expressing joy through music." With that shared moment bringing warmth in the crisp air, they took turns talking about their progress, each revealing their triumphs and struggles without an ounce of judgment. Their vulnerability transformed into more than just a sharing. It became fuel for deeper connections, even as they faced the shadows that sometimes lingered from their pasts. Hours slipped away, laughter echoed through the park, and as dusk began to descend, Sarah felt a change deep within her. There were still fears residing in the corners of her mind, worries that seemed so real they could touch her. But she felt different now with every brushstroke, every note played, and every story shared. It was as if a kaleidoscope of color had begun to paint her life. Turning to Thomas, she asked, "What about you? Have you been able to write more this week?" "I have," he replied with an eager spark in his eye. "I wrote about the fire, our experiences, and it felt good to put those words out there, not just for others, but for myself too." Sarah nodded, feeling the power that came from expression. "I'm so proud of all of us. This journey isn't just about pursuing dreams, it's about acknowledging our stories and growth." But then, a subtle stillness settled among them. Sarah felt the weight of the previous week's revelations all rushing back. Who would they become if they continued pressing forward? Holding those burdens while pursuing dreams? What if she hesitated, needing to voice her hidden fears now? What if all this newness brings up past wounds? What if it unearths deeper pains? Alex's expression fell somber. That's a real possibility. But don't we owe it to ourselves to confront those things? To challenge our fears for the sake of pursuing joy? "Yeah," Thomas reiterated, pressing a hand on the table. "We can do it together. Our pasts don't have to define our futures, but confronting them is part of this journey." The atmosphere shifted to one of determination. Sarah felt the warmth surging once again. If they could bravely face their fears and find healing through connection, perhaps the storms they weathered would only pave the way for brighter days ahead. As twilight fell and fireflies began to dance in the air, illuminating the evening with their soft glow, Sarah realized their journey had only just begun. Together, they could break down walls, mend broken pieces, and discover their dreams anew, step by step. And perhaps, with every stroke of paint and note strummed, they would uncover parts of themselves they thought were lost forever. As they packed up to leave, Sarah glanced at her companions, soaking in the shared smiles and newfound lightness attempting to guide them through the unfolding chapters of their lives. "I'm grateful for you both for this chance," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. The two exchanged nods, understanding the weight of the journey they had embarked upon together. They were no longer just a maid and the rich family she worked for. They were families intertwined, values challenged, and barriers taken down, ready to face whatever came next together. And as they stepped into the evening twilight, with laughter ringing in the cooling air, Sarah dared to believe their joint dreams could reshape their lives in ways they had only begun to envision. Note: don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.